Hello everyone! Welcome to the next installment of History at Home. My name is Evan and I'm on the creative team at the Boston Tea Party Ships and Museum. Like all museums across Massachusetts, we are currently closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but it is our hope that we'll be able to open our doors again to all of you very soon. In the meantime, while many of us are home right now, let's use our 21st century technology to bring the 18th century back to you. Welcome to my home. For today's episode, I thought I would share with you a different side of history and share an activity that you can do in the comfort of your own home. It's an 18th century recipe that is fun and easy to make and has a fascinating history too. The ship's biscuit. Let's learn how this little piece of bread became a big part of life in the 18th century. While they may not be much to look at, these little pieces of bread had many uses and went by many different names. This bread was being consumed well before the time period of the American Revolution, and over the years it's gone by a myriad of different names. You may have heard it referred to as hardtack. While that is technically one of the names of this style of bread, that's not what it was called during the time of the Boston Tea Party. In the 18th century, during the time of the American Revolution, this would have simply been called a biscuit, or more than likely, a ship's biscuit. As the name suggests, the ship's biscuit would have been an important part of any sailor's diet while at sea. This little bread is as close to a non-perishable food item as you could get in the 18th century. They are very dry, very hard, and tended not to spoil. This bread most likely would have been part of the rations eaten by the crews of the ships involved in the Boston Tea Party. Unfortunately, the ship's biscuit was not made to be savored, nor was it truthfully made with any flavor in mind at all. It was made to last and provide sailors with basic sustenance. Bakers would make these biscuits as hard as possible. Oftentimes, they would be baked more than once, 2, 3, or 4 times to ensure their longevity. However, this made the biscuits so impossibly hard, they were virtually inedible unless they were first dunked into some sort of liquid like alcohol or water and then consumed. As appetizing as it sounds to eat some hard bread with water, don't do it. It's not worth it. This is way too hard to eat, and it will take you hours to soften it up, and even then, it's not going to taste very good. However, there is a recipe to utilize a ship's biscuit that is absolutely delicious. Let's make it. Now that we've washed our hands, let's prep our ingredients. All we need is about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of whole wheat flour, about 2 cups of water, though the amount of water required may vary depending on how much flour you use, and some salt. I prefer the coarse sea salt, but regular table salt will do. Now that we've got our ingredients, it's time to get our oven ready to go. This recipe calls for a low to medium heat, so I've set my oven to 320 degrees. Now it's time to make our biscuits. All we need to do is add some salt to the flour and make sure that's evenly distributed. Once that's complete, just add your water. You want to add enough water to make a nice stiff dough. Okay, now I have the small loaf of dough here. Now it's time to break up this loaf into the individual ship's biscuits. You want to make sure that you get your biscuits nice and floury and nice and smooth into their biscuit shape. Now it's time to put our biscuits on the baking tray. Now these are not going to rise very much, so it's okay to put them pretty close together. They want to be about 1/2 inch in thickness. And last but not least, we need to prick them a little bit so they don't puff up too much while cooking. Okay, these are ready for the oven. They're gonna cook for about 2 to 3 hours at 320 degrees. You wanna check them once or twice during baking to make sure they don't burn. Okay, time is up. Let's get them out of the oven to cool down. Congratulations! You made ship's biscuits. Now what? Whatever you do, please do not try to eat this as is. It is simply too hard. But believe it or not, this is the perfect thing to add to a nice hot stew. This stew would have been called lobscouse and would have been something consumed aboard ship around the time of the Boston Tea Party. The first usage of this term dates back to roughly 1706, as it was a common meal for the time period. Lobscouse was a simple stew made from boiled beef and vegetables, if there were any on board. It was a hearty and savory meal whose key ingredient is, you guessed it, ship's biscuits. You can make this stew at home in your kitchen. All you need is a nice sturdy pot and a cooktop. For me, because it's a cold, rainy New England day, I'm going to cook mine over the fire. So all of the ingredients for the stew can be found at your local grocery store, or it can be delivered to your house. Just make sure you wash your hands and sanitize everything before you begin. And these are the ingredients for our stew. We have some meat, which we're going to boil over the fire. It's a chuck roast. We have some simple golden potatoes that have been cut into cubes, some white onion, any onion will do, and some carrots. So step number 1 is heat your pot. You want to get the pot nice and warm before browning your beef. Now the key ingredient to lobscouse is the broken up ship's biscuits. Given how tough these are, this is no small feat. Honestly, the easiest way to do it is with a hammer.
That is so good. The ship's biscuit really thickens up the stew and adds a lot of texture. It's a lot like breadcrumbs. This recipe is so simple, it's so easy to make, and it's so much fun. I hope all of you can make it at home. I also hope that you've enjoyed this episode of History at Home by the Boston Tea Party Ships and Museum. If you have any feedback or comments, please leave a message in the comments section. I hope all of you are healthy and safe at home. Remember to practice good social distancing and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. And remember to keep learning. Thanks very much for watching.